appointed Arsenal manager in the fall of 1996. The announcement was met less with fanfare, more with a puzzled incredulity.
The big story here today is that Arsene Wenger starts out in charge of Arsenal.
Arsene who? Screamed one London newspaper. As the gaunt, bookish Frenchman arrived at the club, few thought he'd last the season. Never mind 20 years, but he proceeded to transform Arsenal Football Club.
This is absolutely brilliant. You can see the delight on Arsene Wenger's face.
And English football along with it.
Beautiful, beautiful football. Typical Arsenal.
Quickly winning 3 league titles and going undefeated in his 2003-04 invincible season, which remains the gold standard of Premier League perfection.
It's the first side of the modern era to go through a season unbeaten.
They are undoubtedly simply the best.
In a league in which managers tend to have the lifespan of fruit flies, lasting on average just over 2 years, Wenger has had remarkable fortitude.
I'd love to sign this fellow for life.
Now in his 21st season, a Premier League constant.
Did I make mistakes? Of course, plenty.
Though the teams, players and the game itself have changed around him.
You're back in it, Arsene. You are right back in it.
To find out how he does it,
Look, see my heart here? Every defeat is a big scar.
I went deep inside the mind of Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger, this is your 21st season.
Don't tell me that.
As manager at Arsenal Football Club, I've got to know, how do you retain the energy to keep leading in the crucible of the Premier League for such an eternity? Do you ever feel like Sisyphus, eternally rolling a rock up a hill only to have it bang over your toes on the way down?
Not really, no. I think I survive because I love the game. I love to win. I love the next game. And my job is great because you have to build a concept and to show that it works on the pitch. And football is so rich that every time it's a new experience. And I think it's a good school of humility. It's a good lesson as well for every individual who thinks, I found the secret. In the next game, football will show you we found absolutely nothing at all.
I believe that, and I've seen that over and over again. So I have to ask you, you are a rational, intelligent man. You got a master's in economics at Strasbourg. What drives you to be a manager? Because there can only be one winner every season, Arsene. Everybody else is pilloried, mocked, scorned, derision, a tabloid pinata. What is the pleasure in it all?
The pleasure in it all is to develop people, to give moments of happiness.
Dennis Bergkamp is in, and that is brilliant. A touch of class, world class.
To get the best out of a team. A season is not only the team who has won the season, that means the last game of the season. A season is plenty of succession of moments where you have the dream, where you are fulfilled, where you are down, where you have to pick up your players, where you have to come back. So it's a fantastic school of being tough, strong, and I believe as well that a life of a strong human being is to have a long-term target and not to fade during that trip, you know. Who can maintain the focus? Who is capable to go from A to B without being down every time that you have a disappointment? Who can maintain the motivation level? And that's what is really interesting in our job.
Your job, manager, a role which you once described thusly. You said, I am first and foremost an educator. I try to be faithful to the values I believe to be important in life and pass them on to others. What are those values?
I know that we live in a period where it's only about how to win at any costs. And I think a club is bigger than that, and that sport is much bigger than that. And that sometimes we discover that people who were adored and worshipped for long periods were just cheats, you know. And as a manager, you have an influence on the identity of a club, on the individual course of the careers of the players, and of course as well on the style of play and on the results of the team.
Sports people, I believe a big club must have the ambition to win with style.
Of course.
If I could only give you one of these things, playing beautiful football or winning ugly, which would you select?
You don't think like that. You think the best way to win is to play football where everybody expresses his talent. And what is marvellous in the game, nobody of us has all the qualities. But in a team sport, what is very interesting is to develop, because everybody brings his best to the unit. And so I believe always the debate, do you win ugly, or you cannot be a big club and say to everybody, look, my friends, buys who fills them for the game they love. Everybody who sits in the stand was a football player.
Everyone who sits in the stands thinks they're a football manager.
As well, but I accept that. And they can be sometimes right and I can be wrong, you know. My job is to make sure that out of 100 times, I'm more often right than they are. But you have to accept that it's a public job and that everybody has an opinion, and people today are better informed, they know better. But on the other hand as well, it's not to be a dictatorship from people who are outside, because they do not know always really what's going on.
Up next, Arsene explains the emotional toll that comes with managing one of the biggest football clubs in England.
You once said that you experience every defeat like a death.
Look, see my heart here? Every defeat is a big scar in my heart here.
One of my favourite quotes that you often recite, the only way to deal with death is to transform everything that precedes it
into art. You've come closest in the English Premier League to creating art as football.
It is the crowning glory. It's another one to put in the portfolio.
The 2003-2004 invincible Arsenal team that went unbeaten for an entire season, which is, even saying it, it's still almost impossible to fathom.
They are unbeaten and they are undoubtedly simply the best.
The new Invincibles.
How often, in your rare occasions of rest, the moments from that season come into your head?
My job is to do the best with with the players I have and to develop them. What I wanted to do is, when I tell you winning with style, it was the team who played with style.
Pires in for the cheekiest goal of the night.
That is brilliant! That is simply stunning! There's a little smile now on the face of the manager.
We were the only one who has done that in a modern game in England. Nobody else has done it, you know. So I wanted to show to the players that if you seed something in your brain and you really want it, you can do it.
It's Vieira. Oh, it's a picture goal. That's why they're the champions.
That was for me a very interesting lesson. If you set high targets, sometimes you do not achieve it completely as quickly as you imagine you could do it. But if you maintain it on a longer period, you can get it.
The champions and the deserving champions are Arsenal.
You never know how good you are as a manager, but if you don't lose a game, there's not much room for anybody else to do better.
You won the title on enemy turf, White Hart Lane, that season. I've always wanted to know, Arsenal-Tottenham, is that just the rivalry, a fan conception, or did that add to your pleasure, Arsene?
Yes, of course, but it's not the main one. You think as a manager, you go a bit above that, you know. Your demands are internal, your needs are internal, and you think, have I done the maximum with the players I had? And did I get this team as far as I could them go? And that's what is for me more interesting than where you win the championship. And I must say, even in some seasons, when we just finished third or fourth, I felt I have done a very good job. But it was not more in the team than as good as when you won the championship. 2003-2004
was a peerless victory, but it occurred at the very moment English football was forever changed. Roman Abramovich brought into Chelsea to lift the title the very next year. Did that massive cash influx and everything that's happened to the game since then, did it transform everything that you knew about winning as a manager?
Of course. It changed. It was a change of era. We have moved from a period where people were successful, bought the clubs of their dream, to an international level where the billionaires bought the clubs in England. We have even moved up again now to state clubs, you know, to some states or in big investment funds, international investment funds by big clubs in England now. So it has gone up a level. The billionaire is not enough anymore in England now. It has to be a very big international investment fund.
Yet, despite this, you claim to retain a sense of optimism. I mean, football is dark and full of terrors. Where does that sense of optimism, how is it not beaten out of it?
Well, honestly, in my job, I believe that the main quality is to be an optimist. If you see the future in a negative way, you commit suicide in my job. It is perceived that the championship is over, but I don't think that completely, even if Leicester is in a very strong position. But I think we have to continue to fight until the last minute of the season. You're responsible for the motivation of all the people around you. You have to pick up everybody inside the club. You should see what the club is about after a big defeat, you know. It's like a lost war and everybody's on the floor. So you have to be an optimist and say to people, come on, my friends, we are good enough to pick up and win our next game, and we can do this together. Remember how good you are. And because everybody forgets quickly in life how good he is and how good he can be when things go wrong. I believe my job is to be an optimist as well.
You say that despite being a self-admitted, notoriously bad loser. You once said that you experience every defeat like a death.
Yes. Look, see my heart here? Every defeat is a big scar in my heart here.
Arsene Wenger is an animated individual.
He is. We are all people, or we love to win, or we hate to lose. You know, most of the time, the guys who love to win are strikers. The guys who hate to lose are defenders. I think a manager is a guy who loves to win, but as well, above all, he hates to lose. And when you have experience in my job, it's even worse. That's why I say, when you lose once, be very careful not to lose the game after. Everybody dreams that you will win the next game and it will all start again. And that's where the experience is very important. Just don't lose the next one. Don't dream to win it. Just don't lose it. Because if you lose 2, you have more chances to lose 3. Once you lose 3, you are in a super crisis. So that is very important, I believe, as well. The quality of a manager is to stop the defeats as quickly as possible. Where one loses 2, the average one loses 3 or 4 or 5, you know. And when all goes well, all the managers in the world are good. But the quality of the manager, look, when he stands in a crisis and has to face it, how quickly can we stop it?
I'm fascinated by the public and the private, the difference between the two, because elite managers, they're very good at shifting the blame after a loss. It was a referee's fault. It was a lucky goal.
Sometimes it is.
It was a goal against the run of play. Honestly, though, can you talk about how you process a loss to make sure that that one loss doesn't lead to a second, a third?
First of all, this is like a little bit the Formula 1 engine, you know. When you don't win the race, you have to examine every little part of your engine. The big champions have one thing in common. They have a very fair assessment of their performance, and they find the answers where it didn't work. And that's what it is about for a manager, is to go to essential. Because you find 100 problems, but you have to go to the 2 or 3 who are at the heart and at the start of the problems. And that's why we try to analyze in a very objective way, with statistics as well, with numbers. And for example, I give you a concrete view, how many chances did our opponent have, how many chances did we create, how well did we build our game up, where was our biggest problem, did we stop the crosses, did we not stop the crosses, did we allow shots from outside the box, did we make stupid fouls, all these kind of things, but you have to find exactly where you were wrong.
So when do you do this? I mean, you have your press conference after the match, or is it days?
I managed around 2,000 games, so I know there's a moment where I go to the dressing room and I'm destroyed. Before I go to the press conference, I know now, my friend, the state is bad enough. Don't make it worse, you know. So there's a moment of safety, of emergency, where you go to the press conference, where you know you have to save what can be saved. And after overnight, you analyze. In the next morning, you watch the game again. You get your numbers, analysis from the game, and then you start to work. But it's very important that in a press conference just after the game, you don't make more damage that has already been done. We lost too many challenges, and that explains why we lost the game. But that's one aspect, so well done to them.
What role does external criticism play? I imagine as a manager you filter out almost all of it, thick skin. But what do you let in?
Well, I would say, of course, it plays a part in the confidence, because it has an incidence and a consequence on the confidence of the players. But if I've survived for such a long time in this job, it's because I can make a difference between what is hate, what is bad wishes, what is revenge, what is resentment, and what is objective, you know. And I accept criticism, but I just try to analyze, is it fair, is it right or not? And then I get to my own analysis and take into account what people say, yes, but as well get completely out what I think is just destined to be spectacular.
Coming up, Arsene relives his career journey and reveals what it is about Premier League football that still draws him to it.
Sometimes when I was 33, 34, at half-time, I thought, my friend, stop this, you will never survive in this job. And 30 years later, I'm still here. I still suffer, don't worry, because you want to win, and nobody can guarantee that. Football is spectacular because it's uncertain.
The stress, Arsene. Some games when I watch Arsenal,
Yeah.
I look at you in the technical area.
You look at me suffering, and you're right, of course I suffer.
How do you cope with the stress?
I started at the top level at the age of 33, what was exceptionally young, you know, to have that responsibility at the age of 33. 30 years later, I'm still there. And I must say that sometimes when I was 33, 34, at half-time, I thought, my friend, stop this, you will never survive in this job. And 30 years later, I'm still here. So that means that my body certainly progressively adapted to it. I still suffer, don't worry. And why? Because you want to win, and nobody can guarantee that. Football is spectacular because it's uncertain. But at the end of the day, my optimistic personality always takes over.
Time, you're back in it, Arsene. You are right back in it.
The future will be good. Just work hard, put the effort in, do the right things, and the future will be all right.
But that sense of optimism must be nourished by something, Arsene.
It's nourished by a naive belief in human being.
There's the whistle. They always get there in the end. Arsene Wenger smiles for the first time in what seems like weeks.
My job basically is to say to people, you do it for me, I believe you will do it. If you experience that in a negative way, you become paranoid. If you believe in people, that they want to do their best, that they want to give their best, you're an optimist, you know. And that's maybe naive, but it is like that.
Oh, an opportunity, surely a goal it is! Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain for Arsenal. Relief pouring down the stands here at the Emirates.
20 years at Arsenal. It's an unbelievable achievement. Is there one thing that you would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight?
There was plenty of things I would have done differently. I think what I want to be looked at is that I carried through these generations the values of that club through with absolute commitment and with absolute loyalty. And I gave absolutely my best to develop the players, show the players how great football can be if we get over our ego and put our qualities together.
Arsenal have a firm grip on this game.
This is absolutely brilliant. You can see the delight on Arsene Wenger's face.
Did I make mistakes? Of course, plenty, but that's part of my experience as well.
The Emirates Stadium rises. Finally, Arsenal have their goal.
You are a remarkable footballing monogamist. Your relationship with Arsenal spans now 2 decades. It's an astonishing amount of time. What's the most important life lesson that you draw from it all?
The most important life lesson is that you meet in your life the possibility to share the values that are important for you. And why did I stay at Arsenal? You know that I had plenty of opportunities to go to very glamorous clubs, but I think when you found what is important for you, that means you share the values that are important for you with your club. Don't be stupid enough just for an ego or a glory problem to go somewhere else. And I'm very proud of that, you know. I resisted to attractions who looked much more glorious just to be faithful to what I believe is right in life.
So that tenacity, that fidelity.
Tenacity is the most underrated quality in life. We all speak about talent, intelligence, glamour, but tenacity is the common thing for every successful person in life, you know. Maintain that motivation to go from A to B and to keep your focus on that target without any weakening. That is called tenacity. Stamina in your motivation.
To listen to Arsene Wenger is to be in the company of a philosopher-manager, a self-professed, naive optimist in a footballing world that favours the pragmatic, even Machiavellian, a man for whom every defeat leaves a scar on his heart, but who firmly believes the true quality of a manager is where he stands in crisis and the style in which he faces